Hey, this is Mark Davis with Big Water Adventures. I wanted to talk for a moment about my Power Pole Move trolling motor and just give you some of my thoughts. I had it installed and went straight to a shoot. Legitimately, I went to the Neuse River in North Carolina, put my boat in the water, and the very first time that I pushed down and put it in the water was to start filming. And it was a situation where not only had I never used it before, but my captain and co-host, Greg Volova, he'd never used it before either, and we alternated back and forth during that shoot. The first thing that struck me was how quickly and easily I was able to understand everything it did, utilize everything it did, and find everything it did. It's really an incredibly simple pad, and once you put it on and use it for 5 minutes, you've got it figured out. Backing up, I had to put it in the water first. They told me at ICAST this year that, hey man, stomp down on that lever, it'll kick up in your hand, turn it loose, and you're in the water, it's deployed. It's incredibly easy, to the point where it takes a little bit of getting used to, because I was so used to being down on my hands and knees and taking clamps off and popping things loose and doing all that. Now it's, you step on it and it deploys. So from getting it off the boat to in the water, no problems whatsoever. Once it was there, I'm looking down at a monitor that yet again synced up with my pad. Took me no time whatsoever to figure out what was going on. Instead of trying to listen to beeps and hearing chirps and all that other stuff, everything's nice and easy. You can see what's lit means what's on, what's not lit means it's off. You can see where it goes up in terms of numbers to what you're doing, whether the propulsion's on or off, and what level it's at. From jump, the first thing that blew me away was we were trying to catch old drum, which oftentimes can be big old smart fish, and they were chasing what they call thumpers up there, which are big giant schools of menhaden that are typically not real crazy about trolling motors and boats being with them in 3 to 4 feet of water, especially when you got the old drum around them. The first aha, you gotta be kidding me moment, we'd actually caught an old drum and had it next to the boat. And as we were doing the filming, I noticed there was a school of those big menhaden legit in 3 to 4 feet of water right by the boat, just milling around. The trolling motor was on anchor, and it was blowing probably 10, 12 mile an hour, and those menhaden had not a clue where we were even around. I looked at Greg and I said, you ever seen that before? He said, man, we got to turn the trolling motor off and drift across these flats just to get close enough to them to throw a net on them a lot of times. So the quietness of that motor, or I don't even really want to call it quiet because you couldn't hear it. Quiet means there is some level of being able to hear it. It was silent. The next thing that got my attention, I've been running the same boat, a 2600 Blue Wave now for, I think 6 seasons or 7. And Move is the right name for that trolling motor. I have never, ever had a trolling motor move that boat. Number one is quickly. I think I got 3.9, almost 4 mile an hour into the wind, 4.0, with a 2600 Blue Wave. The steering is phenomenal, and essentially the handling that it does on the bow is something I've never experienced. I wanted to do it sitting in a studio like this, just talking to the camera, because I think everybody that knows me knows that, you know, I'm gonna tell you the reality of it, good, bad, or otherwise. You get on one of these pads right here with a Power Pole Move on the front, it's gonna change the way you fish. I mean, I'd heard all the stories about guys having to back off of them to keep from cutting up schools of redfish because they never knew that they were there. You know, tarpon lazing up on the surface, that they're literally asleep and don't hear you coming. Quieter than push poling. These are all friends of mine in direct quotes. And I had to see it for myself, and I did. That Power Pole Move trolling motor, they spent 5, 6 years, whatever it was, I'd been hearing about it. You know, they're testing it, they're modifying it, they're changing it, it's gotta be right, it's gonna be revolutionary. There's 80% or whatever the percentage was of it doesn't exist. They had to literally create the parts. It's all real. You guys are gonna just have to give me a minute here because I had to dive for the Power Pole Move remote. I had to get another fish grip. Whew. I gotta turn the Power Pole Move. Watch your footing, camera guy, because Power Pole Move is about to put the sun on it. If I put the Power Pole Move on anchor, it's facing right into the sun, and we don't have sun on these fish on either side of the boat. If you wonder why we're just kind of like a couple of monkeys holding 2 big giant redfish,
Well, we're a couple of monkeys holding two big giant redfish.
If you don't have one and you don't want to buy one to check, get on the boat with somebody that's got one, and I guarantee you that'll be the only sea trial you'll need to put a power pole move on your boat.